for you. He'll serve you. Thank you very much. So we're going to allow each one of the candidates to do 2.5-minute opening comments. Since they took the one you left, Tyler, I'll let Tyler go first.
I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. The South Strand Republican Club.
We get up every question. Yeah, you can have 2.5 minutes and I can say.
Yeah, you might have to go over here. So, I'm sorry.
I appreciate the South Strand Republican Club for putting this on this evening. John Bond Sr., Liston Wells for organizing it. I really appreciate my good friend Chuck Otwell for that great introduction. Early on in my life, my grandfather taught me a very good life lesson. He says, never get upset when you go on a fishing trip with a man that's in the business of fishing, because he probably will catch more fish than you do. Tonight, I'm in a contest of talking with a man that's in the business of talking. I just hope I can keep up. When it comes to public service, I think most people have gotten used to the emphasis being put on the word public and not the word service. Service is the reason for me running and the way I hope to define my time spent in office. I've been brought up to believe that whom much is given, much is expected. And as Americans, South Carolinians, and members of this community, we are all truly blessed. We should all find a way to give back. At this point in my life, I have the time, the energy, and perspective to best serve my community on Horry County Council. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in politics today is assuming all the best ideas come from elected officials. I know that they come from the people. I believe that the answers and solutions for Horry County's best possible future are within our reach, but they're not going to be found in a drawer or in a table in the Horry County Council chambers. They're going to be found by listening to the input and ideas of each and everybody in this room, the District 5 residents, and the Horry County citizens. I'm Tyler Servant. I have the time and the energy to serve you. I will pick up your phone call, and I just need your help on June 24th, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Trust me, Tyler, you're doing fine. You're going to do more than keep up. Those public speaking lessons are paying off. I want to thank y'all for coming out, and I do thank the South Strand Republican Club for, again, hosting us. It's a privilege to be standing here. It's a privilege to be here with Mr. Servant. It's been an interesting experience. We got into this race because we were encouraged to run. And again, too, I see this as service. We're doing this because my wife and I prayed about it, and we were prepared to give back. And we feel like we're the right candidate for the job. And we've asked for your support. We've gotten a lot of that support. We appreciate that very much. It's been, as I said, a very interesting time. We said at the beginning of this race that we were going to run an honorable campaign. We weren't going to say anything that wasn't true. We weren't going to do anything in this campaign that we couldn't talk about in Sunday school, and we've done that. I can tell you the people that have worked for me, the people that worked with me on this campaign, and I'm forever indebted to them for their help and their support. A lot of them are in this room tonight. We've done that. And so whatever the outcome comes, we said from the beginning that we were going to trust you, the voters, with the outcome, and we do. Whatever the outcome on Tuesday, we're praying for the result that we want, but whatever the outcome, we trust you, the voters, to make the right decision. Just a couple of things real quickly. You've heard a lot of talk over the course of this campaign about issues. We've all said a lot of the same things, by the way. We all want the Cell Road. We all want more jobs. We all want public safety to be a priority. These things do not distinguish the candidate. I would submit to you that there are distinguishing characteristics. I like Tyler. My wife and I have had the privilege of getting to know him through this campaign. We like him. As I said to you, it's a privilege to stand here with Mr. Servant and speak to you tonight. Once there was 4, now there are 2. It's an honor to be here. But having said that, the distinguishing characteristics between the two candidates who remain for your consideration is experience. I think Tyler's a very nice young man, but he is that. He's a young man. I have had 20 years of experience in business, in law, in politics. I've run my own business. I've worked for large corporations. I have worked for politicians. I had the privilege of working for Governor Campbell. So I would submit to you that when you compare the background of the two candidates, and by the way, thank you, John. I neglected to thank you, but thank you for that rousing introduction. Speaking of public speaking, maybe it's John Bond Sr. who should be on the ticket, representing you as the residents of District 5. But I have the experience and the background to be able to be effective on your behalf. And remember, this is service. This is about who is going to represent you well, who's going to represent you effectively on county council going forward. Not in 6 months, not in a year, not in 2 years, but on day one. Because this is a tough arena that we compete in. And you're not just debating one person. You're debating 11 people. And you're debating on behalf of the citizens that you serve. And with all due respect to Tyler, he's demonstrated a reluctance to debate on this campaign. I'm very thankful that he is here this evening. It gives you guys the opportunity to see us respond to your questions. But this is the third or either the fourth debate that's been held here, and this is Tyler's first appearance here. But I do agree with what we both said tonight. This is an opportunity for public service, and I feel like when you compare the candidates, you'll see that we're the campaign best suited to serve you on day one, right out of the gate. And I appreciate your consideration and your support. Thank you so much.
Before we get started, let me just say that this is only the second time I've moderated a campaign forum, so I might be more nervous than the candidates are. And I'm also going to try to get out of this room with as many friends as I came into it with. So you may see you may hear your question reworded a little bit or what have you, just to make sure that it kind of applies to both candidates. I'm going to kind of follow the same kind of format we did the last time, which will be just since Tyler started off, I'll direct this first one to Reese, and I'll ask the questions that both of you will get a chance to answer. And I think they've given you what, about a minute, 2 minutes to answer.
John, what much time we have to respond? We don't really have 2 minutes. You won't keep up.
Okay. So anyway, here we go with the first one. It is, if you are elected, will you be planning to attend the regular meetings of the Greater Burgess Community Civic Association and the South Strand Club? And what are the pressing needs to the communities that make up the Burgess community, and how did you determine it?
Thank you, Randall. That's a good question. And I think one of the things that you have to do in order to represent the community effectively is to be in touch with the community. I've had the opportunity to walk many neighborhoods and shake many hands. I think we've shaken multiple thousands of hands on the campaign trail. We've made a lot of great friends along the way, and you do have to stay in touch. I've had many conversations with Al Jordan throughout this process, and I look forward, if I am privileged with the opportunity to serve you, to stay in touch with the community leaders in Burgess, in Surfside, in Garden City, in Murrells Inlet, to hopefully be effective in representing you. And there are many issues throughout Burgess and beyond, throughout the 5th District, that need to be addressed. And yes, being accessible, being in the community is important, and we will do that. Ever since we began this campaign, I've handed out about 3,000 of these cards, among other things. Each one of those cards has my cell phone number on it, and everyone who's gotten that card knows that I'm only a cell phone call away. Nobody has called me at that number since this campaign began who hasn't gotten either an answer or a return phone call in just a few hours. And when I'm elected, that will not change. Thank you.
Has another 30 seconds if he wants.
Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had 30 more seconons, or?
You have 30 seconds left, but if you want to give it up, it's
I
okay.
will honorably concede the balance of my time to my opponent.
Your mind just repeat partial of the question.
Yeah, it was, do you plan to attend the Greater Burgess Community Association and the South Strand Republican Clubs regularly if you're elected? And what are the pressing needs of the community that make up the Burgess community?
Sure. Early on in my campaign, I've attended the meetings. I came to the cleanups with Mr. Al Jordan that he's so well organized and picked up trash all day up and down Holmestown Road. When it comes to the issues, and I will be attending the meetings, and I have been in contact with Mr. Al Jordan and Mr. Jordan Butler. I will attend these meetings. Also, the pressing issues you find by listening to the people, by going to their house, answering their phone calls, by attending the meetings, by being available to the people. Right now in my life, I have the time to dedicate to it. I work for my small family business, Surfside Realty Company in Surfside Beach. It allows me to carve out time throughout the day to dedicate to you, each and every one of you. And that's what I'm going to do. I will answer your phone calls in a timely manner and listen to y'all's problems, because that's how we're going to know the issues. Thank you.
Knowing that that being a county councilman is a part-time job, if you are our councilman, how much time could you dedicate every day outside of attending the council meetings to the job?
Once again, I work for my family's business, and I can carve out as much time as needed. If it takes 60 to 70 hours a week to meet the needs of District 5, I can dedicate that to District 5. I've already planned to have meetings, if I'm so fortunate to be elected, to talk to the people, to answer their phone calls. So I have no time limit. I can dedicate as much time as necessary to serve the needs of the people of District 5 and Ward County.
Randall, it's an interesting question. One thing we have learned, and I keep hearing again and again the time that's available. We didn't have, one thing I learned, and I knew this already, but I was reminded of this on the campaign trail. The great luxury in life, think about this, the great luxury in life is time. The one thing you cannot manufacture one iota of, in addition to that which the good Lord gives you, is time. He gives you 24 hours today to do with as you will, as you see fit. And you don't get 24 and a half, you don't get 25, and you don't get 48. My wife often suggests that I need 48. But you don't get an ounce more than 24 hours. And so the great benefit, I would say advantage, that some of the candidates have had in this race is, yes, some of them have jobs that allow them to work on their schedule, as you just heard described. Some of the candidates in the campaign were retired, could campaign around the clock effectively. I am a little different. I have a job, I have a mortgage, I have a family that I have to support, and yes, I have a law practice. But one thing that we've learned in this particular campaign is that you make time for those things that are important to you. And as I said to you, I challenge you to find a reporter, a television newscaster, a constituent, anybody, quite frankly, who called me at the outset at any point in this campaign and did not either get me on the phone or promptly receive a call back. So I'll take the same attitude to serving you on county council that I've taken to this campaign.
Time.
And I'll get the job done. Thank you.
Time.
My apologies to the chair. I'm just using the balance of my prior times.
All right. Reese, I guess, what ways do you plan to save the county money in their county budget? Specific ideas that you have?
Randall, I think there are numerous ways that we can potentially save money. I think the main thing that we can realistically do, there were some fairly over-the-top suggestions tossed around on the campaign trail at the debates about money that could be saved. I'm not going to be unrealistic in the amount of savings that I tell you I can generate on day one. What I will tell you that can be done and will be done if I'm your councilman is every spending proposal that comes before me will be evaluated critically, and it will be evaluated for the standard that we have shared with the voters when we've walked the trail and knocked on 2,000 or 3,000 doors, which is, we're going to make sure the county spends your money as carefully as you would, because that's whose money the county is spending. They're not spending their money, they're spending your money. They've taken the money through the taxation power that the county has, and it's not theirs, it's yours, and they should spend it just as carefully as you would spend it. And I can assure you, when I look at every appropriation, every proposal, that will be the attitude that I take. And there were specific spending examples that brought me to the campaign trail. I've talked about those on the trail. The WestJet transaction, I can perhaps talk about a little bit more if I have time. But yes, there have been instances where the county has not spent your money carefully. And I'll make sure that we work hard to be as careful as we can with your money. Thank you.
What ways do you plan to save the county money, or what you're going to advocate to save the county money in their budget?
I think the key is, as a Republican and a physical conservative, we have to look at budgeting with the taxpayer's point of view. For each dollar we spend, we get the most out of that dollar. And I don't think Horry County is doing that right now. I reject the theory that we have to raise revenue or cut services. I just don't agree with it. I do not believe Horry County is working. I believe Horry County is working with waste right now. When we get over there, we can carve out that and make sure we are looking at each and every dollar we spend and getting as much money as we can out of that.
I just want to start with Tyler. All the candidates say that they want the CEL project, the Southern Evacuation Lifeline project, to take place, but yet it is not being built. Why is it so delayed, and what do you think is the biggest threat to getting it built?
I think the biggest threat to getting it built is the environmental groups and the lawyers they have. They have costed us $20 million in the projects we have had by extorting money out of the government. We just broke ground on SC 31. Glens Bay Road is yet to be widened. They're about to start that. And they're just about to start 707 widening with the clearing. We should be cutting ribbons on those roads. And we're just starting those roads. It is because the environmental groups are holding up the processes and costing our taxpayers dollars. And for the CEL project, we need to make sure we get the $4.5 million for the environmental impact statement. Like Mr. Nelson Park is fighting diligently for, and that my former boss, Senator Clary, is fighting for at the State House. We get that money, we can get the permit, and it's going to be a fight with the environmental groups.
Good question, Randall. Of course, as we've said, everybody wants the CEL. I'm not aware of any environmental challenges to the Glens Bay widening. That is pretty much a done deal. It's just a question of getting it constructed. It is a done deal. But obviously, in terms of the CEL, there was a huge environmental challenge mounted to the project. And you can understand why you have that. That's become a fact of life, unfortunately, with most major infrastructure projects. And I would love to turn back the clock to a time when things were a lot more simple. You know, the Hoover Dam was constructed in its entirety in the length of time it took to do an environmental study for the visitor center for Hoover Dam that they recently added a few years back. And we'd all love to turn the clock back to a simpler time when we just did things and got them done. You know, the Allies defeated the Axis in less time than it's going to take us to build the CEL. But having said that, you know, we can't turn back the clock. We live in a complicated world. And so the best that we can do is work within the system that we have, which we will, we'll get the environmental study done. Nelson and his able compatriots on the legislative delegation, we're going to get that funding. We're going to get the study done. And then, I mean, that's going to happen. There's no magic there. I'm very confident. I've talked to Nelson, and I'm very confident that that's going to happen. The question will become, how do we pay for the infrastructure? You're looking, I mean, the most recent data on the project is now out of date. And so you're looking, quite frankly, I mean, don't be misled. It's going to be ultimately a $1 billion project before it's done. At least 850 or 900 million. And so paying for it is going to be a challenge when you consider that RIDE 2 generated $425 million. And by the way, we're still paying off the RIDE debt service is accumulating. We're still paying off the original RIDE. Now, we have dedicated income streams, but the old saying that there is no free lunch applies. And my thing is, we've got to find fiscally prudent ways to build the infrastructure
Aye.
that we need. Thank you, but we will get it done.
All right.
All right. This one will be for Reese, I believe.
Doesn't John know that we just can't?
I'm only by the clock.
That's why I picked him to do the timekeeper.
Yeah.
But we'll start with you, Rick. We'll go with you, Reese. If you had to pick one thing that you could make the RIDE 3 initiative move successfully, what would it be?
Well, again, this is a trick question. Everybody in District 5 wants the cell project, so of course I'm going to tell you that I wish we could take RIDE 3 and build cell, but we can't. The last RIDE revenue from the last segment was $425 million. I just told you it's probably going to be $1 billion project before we're done. But what we need to do realistically, and we will do this, quite frankly, is figure out ways to get facets of the project accomplished, possibly using other revenue sources, possibly looking at toll roads, looking at other inventive, out-of-the-box thinking that will help us raise the money that we need. And that's going to be a real challenge. But obviously, I think cell is a priority for 90% of the people in District 5, and we want to make that happen as quickly as possible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the question was about how to make it run more efficiently, not which project.
If you had to pick one thing that could make the RIDE 3 initiative more successful, what would it be?
I believe, if you look back at the RIDE 2 program, the way it was set up, that the projects were aligned. It was like a relay race. Before you get to the second project, the baton had to be passed. So you had to complete the first project before you could get to the second project. By doing that, environmental groups were able to come in and throw a monkey wrench in between 1 and 2, causing the baton to drop. And so the projects 2 through 10 couldn't get completed. We have to separate these projects out individually on their own standing so we can complete them individually one at a time. Because before, if one project was going on, the second one couldn't get started until it was completed. By separating them out, we will be able to complete these projects more efficiently and more in a timely manner.
This will be for Mr. Servant. Horry County will continue to grow, well, for both of you, but starting with Mr. Servant. Horry County will continue to grow at a faster rate than other SC locations. How do you plan to approach the infrastructure and jobs needed to support that growth?
I think there's a lot of needs for the growth of Horry County. I think one of the biggest growing needs is seniors. Murrells Inlet is 3 times the national average of seniors in the national average. We got to work on traffic control and building these roads and expanding these roads. You look at the traffic and we always think we're trying to get the tourists here quicker and out quicker. But the problem is when there's traffic on Glens Bay Road and there's traffic on 707 and a senior or anybody for that matter is having a heart attack or some kind of medical problem, we've got to get to them. And those ambulances are stuck in traffic. And to be able to build these roads, we're going to have to use the RIDE program. We're going to have to share the burden with the tourists and put more of that burden on the tourists because they use the roads so much.
Brenda, could you repeat the question?
Horry County will continue to grow at a faster rate than other SC locations. How do you plan to approach the infrastructure and the jobs needed to support that growth?
Well, 2 questions, infrastructure and jobs. And first, let me also, I'm not aware of any requirement that was set forth in the RIDE program per se that the projects had to be addressed sequentially. I think we're looking at the realistic demands being placed on our available county resources and demands being placed on available infrastructure in terms of planning, engineering, etc. But having said that, switching to the question at hand, 2 very different questions, jobs and infrastructure. One of the things that I would like to make a priority as your councilman is to make sure not just that we build these projects, but that we maintain them. As I'm sure you guys have noticed, not only do we need improvements in the infrastructure, but we need to maintain the roads that we have. Various roads throughout District 5 do an awful number on your suspension because of the number of potholes that you have to cross every day. That will be a priority to me, not just making sure that we get the infrastructure improvements that we need, but that we maintain the roads that we have. I think that's a critical need for District 5 that impacts each and every one of us. On the job front, I have experience going back in economic development. Way back to my first job out of law school, I had the privilege of working for Carroll Campbell and worked on various economic development efforts. I know the benefits that economic development can bring. We're still reaping the benefits as a state of some of those projects, even today, BMW, et cetera. And so that will be a priority. I'll be very aggressive in doing whatever I can do as your councilman to meet with CEOs, to meet with corporate headhunters, whatever we can do, site selectors, to assist in advancing District 5 as a viable location for economic growth, because that's extremely important. We want our kids, I want my children to grow up and have job opportunities, hopefully, right here in the district. And not just jobs, but career opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to answer?
I do. I didn't realize the job was on the tail end of that one. We are facing a job problem in Horry County right now. I was just graduating from the University of South Carolina not too long ago. My friends have faced these issues. They've wanted to move back home here and be with their families. But instead, they've had to move to Atlanta, Charlotte, Greenville, Columbia, Washington, D.C. to find these good quality jobs to raise a family on. Right now, the Horry County workforce consists of 110,000 working people. Over half of them are making $10 or less in service-oriented jobs. We've got to, the roads and infrastructure and bringing industry come hand in hand. If we build the roads, the quality jobs will come, and our talent pool, which are our kids, will stay here. They will have that job to come back to. Because we have great schools, we have great facilities. We have these great schools, and we need to make sure we're bringing great jobs here so kids can come back here and see that as a viable option.
I think I may have, did I? Did you already answer?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and that's my fault.
I believe we have a second response.
So if you want to add to that.
I'll take my second bite when the opportunity, I address both of the issues.
Okay. Well, I apologize. That was my fault. I'm sitting here trying to keep these quiet. I've learned to respect Mark Meredith and Tim McGinnis a whole lot more having done this now. But I will. Or you're next. Okay.
If you say so.
All right. How do you plan to balance the growing needs of our retirees with our very large tourism industry needs?
Well, one of the things that, again, is important, and it will be a priority for my service as a councilman, is to be in the community. Not just accessible, but to be in the community, meeting with our retirees. I've met a great many retirees on the campaign trail. We've got a lot of people that we call friends now that we hadn't met before this campaign. So I will stay in touch with them, keeping in touch with the various communities where many of our retirees live. We got some outstanding retirement communities in the district, and that's an important part of our demographic. We have a very a demographic that is weighted toward retirees. The biggest chunk of our demographic is, in fact, people who are over the age of 50. So one of the things that we've learned about this is we've met a lot of wonderful people who are retired, and we're going to keep in touch with the community and keep in touch with what their needs are. Obviously, we have a lot of tourism. That's the economic engine at the moment that drives our economy for the most part. But we always want to seek to diversify that, and we always want to seek to stay in touch as your leaders with the constituents who make up the community. And obviously here in District 5, a huge piece of that is the retiree community. And so we'll stay in touch, and we'll have community meetings. We'll have, we've enjoyed the meet and greets that we've had in the various neighborhoods. We'll keep having those. We'll have constituent meetings in the retirement communities, and we'll stay in touch. And where needs arise, and there will be issues that arise, and there are issues that need to be sorted out now. We'll keep those at the fore, and we'll work with you, and we'll keep that a priority. Thank you.
How would you balance the growing needs of our retirees with our very large tourism industry needs?
The tourism needs and the retirees' needs go hand in hand. To attract good tourists here and to attract retirees here is the same thing. They really look at three things: roads and infrastructure, getting in and out, and getting around town. The tourists can get here, and the retirees can get in and around town, and the ambulances and safety staff can get to them. Number two, crime rates. we gotta keep crime down. As you see in this Memorial Weekend and in these weeks where crime gets out of control, we gotta make sure that that crime is handled. Also for residents that live here, crime is a problem. People do not want to live in an area where crime rates are high. And the third thing is beaches and the entertainment we have here. If we have the entertainment, the tourists will want to come. If we have the entertainment, the South Strand Rec Center, these good associations, they will want to come and the retirees want to be here. We got to look at those three things. Rebecca.
And this next question will start with Mr. Servant. There has been a high number of women abducted, raped, murdered in Horry County in recent weeks in the news. How do you plan to raise awareness and a plan to combat that?
It goes right back to crime that I was talking about a minute ago, my number 2 point. We've got to be giving the safety officials all that they need to be able to combat these things. As you saw a couple weeks ago, crime got out of hand. There was 29 rapes in Myrtle Beach, 1,200 EMS calls, 3 people murdered. We got to make sure that we are giving the first responders everything that they need, money, personnel, to respond and take care of these issues. And if we do that, then I believe that these numbers will fall.
I would agree that it is a priority issue. Public safety is not negotiable. One of the things that government must do is uphold the rule of law, and on Memorial Day we saw what happens when the rule of law is not upheld. And where you have lawlessness and where you have, quite frankly, just a blatant disregard for the rules of civilized society, society breaks down. And that doesn't have to happen but a couple of times, folks, and we won't have a tourism economy in Myrtle Beach. Because people will not come back if they think that that is the sort of stuff that happens in Myrtle Beach. And so we've got to work hard to undo the damage that's already been done. But public safety, our first responders, are absolutely a priority. One of the problems that government has is when it tries to do too much, it doesn't focus, it loses focus on the essential services. One thing that I will do as your councilman is help government at the county level retain its focus on essential services. Protecting your safety, protecting you from crime is an essential service. We've got about 1,000 public safety employees who work for the county. We've got to keep them well-funded. We've got to keep them with the tools that they need. We've got to keep them compensated in a manner that they can do their jobs effectively. And that will be a priority because we can't have either, whether you're a retiree, as Tyler said, whether you're a vacationer, whether you live here and are raising a family here, crime is not acceptable. And I'm very concerned about the rash of disappearances that we just talked about. And that is something that falls into that category. I don't know what more county council can do specifically to raise that issue, except keep the issue generally at the fore. But that will be a priority for me as your councilman. You can rest assured. Thank you.
This one will start with Mr. Boyd. Based on what happened Memorial Day weekend and what happened here in Garden City, what would be your response to dealing with Memorial Day?
Well, it's the same question. Essentially, Randall, it's not an issue of anything other than this. It's a question of enforcing the laws that are on the books. You're welcome, in my opinion, to come to Horry County and vacation. I don't really care where you come from. I don't care about any of the issues of what you're affiliated with, what group you're affiliated with. But the standards that apply to us need to be uniformly enforced. And if you come to Myrtle Beach to vacation for Memorial Day or at any other time, it ought to be expected, it ought to be clear that you're going to obey the law while you're here. My understanding was that the Bike Fest was being promoted on the internet as kind of a free-for-all. And that ought not to be the standard for any group, quite frankly. We've got to hold up the standards of civil society, the rule of law, to all our visitors. And if you come here and you break the law, you'll pay the penalty. You'll spend your vacation in jail. And it doesn't matter how many resources we have to garner to make sure that we can enforce the law at all times. We need to do that because that's critical. The local government, in cooperation with county government, state government, needs to have the resources at its disposal. I commend Mark Lathers for working to set up the task forces to open the dialogue on this issue. It's critically important, but we've got to devote the resources that we need to assure that the laws that we have on the books are going to be enforced uniformly at all events, not just Memorial Day bike weekend, but all events.
Time.
Very good. Based on what happened during Memorial Weekend and the things that happened in Garden City, what would be your response to dealing with Memorial Day?
I think we need to let it known to all tourists that are coming down here, you are more than welcome to come. And this goes for any weekend, not just Memorial Weekend. We want you to come. But if you're going to come, you're going to obey the law. And if you don't obey the law, you're going to jail. And we're going to make sure that we give our necessary responders everything they need to respond to all these events. I saw during Bike Week, traffic was stopped for 45 minutes up and down Ocean Boulevard. This is something that just cannot happen, and we got to make sure that we're giving our first responders all the tools necessary, and that we have more people out there. If it takes calling other counties to get more police officers down here to handle the issues, we need to do it. Because if we don't, then the first responders feel at risk. So it's either come down here and have a good time, or go to jail with a long detention center.
Let's start with Mr. Servant. Name anything that you would like to see changed about county government.
I think it goes back to the whole politics in general in the Washington D.C. government. We need change. We need people that are going to be available and accountable to the people, that pick up the phone calls, that are there for them. We need more people in office that have the energy to do it, with new, fresh ideas. You look at West Virginia, a 17-year-old female was elected to the West Virginia State House of Representatives. It's a progression of where we need fresh, young people involved in these new ideas, and people that have the time and energy to dedicate to the job. And if we do these kind of things, then we will see progression in our government. We will see people, the answers getting answered, like the Mr. Man in the second row, Mr. Senator Clary's question. We will see these answers getting answered in a timely manner. You won't have to come to a debate to get them answered. That's it.
Randall, I agree. I think it is time for a fresh input, fresh viewpoints on county council, but I think we also need folks who do have experience on county council. I think that the issue that I would like to see addressed in county council, I'd like to see us work effectively as a council together to accomplish all that we can for the county. We accomplish a lot more when we pull together than when we pull in opposite directions. And one of the things that I think that I will be effective at as your county councilman is working effectively with other members of council to accomplish things for not just the 5th District, but for all of Ulrey County. My granddad was a tobacco farmer in Lawrence. So I have, my earliest memories of Ulrey County were in Lawrence. And then I grew up in Conway. Graduated from Conway High School. Now my wife and our 2 children in the back, we live in Merle's Inlet. I lived in Surfside for a while, actually, before we moved to Merle's Inlet. So I have a broad perspective of life in Ulrey County and a wealth of relationships across the county. And I think, as your councilman, I'll be effective at achieving results, not just for the 5th District, but results that the whole county can be proud of. Because I think I've been effective in this campaign at building bridges with members of council, and I think we'll do that well if we're privileged to be your council. And I think that would be a nice change of pace for council in our perspective from the 5th District. Thank you.
Make sure this will be your next, right? All right.
So I'm next.
Yeah.
Question, 1 minute for the questions, okay? We only
Yeah, they want to.
We don't have much time.
So I've got 4 more questions.
All right, so then they can do it in 30 seconds, right? Hurry up.
All right.
Quick response. Lightning word.
Do you think you'll be able to hold your own with the rest of council in cases where you disagree because another way would have been better for the 5th District than the rest of the way council was going?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you think you'll be able to hold your own with when the rest of the council in cases where you disagree because it's better for, you feel for District 5 in one way than the rest of the council thinks?
Absolutely, and that's one of the points that we've made in this campaign, and I think, quite frankly, again, council is simply a debate. It's an opportunity for your representative to sit on the council, to sit up on the dais and make your case, to be your advocate. And I think one of the things that we'll be able to do as your councilman is make that case on your behalf, and quite frankly, hold our own with some very seasoned, very experienced councilmen who've been there a long time and know the ropes and know the ins and outs of county government like the back of their hand. But I think we'll be effective at doing that, and that's why I think you should consider supporting us to be your councilman for the 5th District. Thank you.
All right. Like I said, I'm rewriting this a little bit, rewriting a little bit so it makes sense. But anyway, do you think you'll be able to hold your own with the rest of the county council in cases where you disagree because you think it's better for District 5 than the way the rest of the council is going?
I agree with that completely. I think District 5 needs come first before any other needs. We do need to work together though, and I think it's really important we articulate the needs of District 5 to other council members in an effective way, in a positive way, in a respectful way. Because like it or not, if we do not articulate these in a respectful way, we're going to need those 7 other votes to get things passed. It's not just, I'm only one vote if I get elected. You know, and we got to be able to articulate these things in a respectful way to win votes. But like I said, District 5 needs come first.
And this one will be, I'll start off with Tyler. One of your former opponents was known to have stated that the county has $125 million unfunded retirement liability. Do you agree or disagree with this? And if it's true, what would you do about it?
To be honest with you, I do not know the answer to that question, and I would love to research it and get back to each and every one of y'all and post it on my social media when I get that answer.
What was the question again?
I'll repeat it for Reese too. It said, one of your former opponents was known to have stated that the county has $125 million unfunded retirement liability. Do you agree or disagree with this? And if that's true, what would you do to correct it?
I believe, Randall, if I'm not mistaken, that was Mr. Otwell's claim. Tyler was made it a couple of debates. You may not have heard it. But I don't know that that's true or not. The state retirement system is available to our county employees. One of the things that did come up in the course of the county's financial deliberations over the last couple of years was the amount of contribution that the county makes towards certain county retirees with respect to their health benefits. And the county did have to make some changes there. And so when Chuck was referring to, did you say 125 million? Whatever the number is, I believe that may have been the specific liability that he was referring to. But one of the things I would say, when we make a promise as a county to a retired fireman or a retired policeman or anybody for that matter, we should keep that promise. Where we make promises to individuals or people that are not financially sustainable, then we have to have a discussion about that.
Thank you, Reese. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jim.
It's my time.
That's my answer.
We gotta get going. You gave me as much seat here.
I've got 2 questions left.
Well, hurry up, Randall. Go quick.
Oh, yeah. Faster.
Don't fit.
I'm letting them talk. Well, I guess we'll start with Mr. Boyd. Do constitutional conservatism or Tea Party principles apply to county government, and if so, how?
I think a general appreciation for limited government and the understanding that government that governs best seeks to govern least applies at any level of government. It's incumbent upon us as your representatives not to see how complex a government regime we can put to bear down on you, but we should seek to stay out of your hair as much as possible. There are essential needs that government must provide. There are essential regulations that government must enact. But I would say a general respect of freedom and constitutional limitation on government certainly applies at any level. Tyranny at any level is tyranny, whether it's from the county, the state, or the federal government.
Again, do constitutional conservatism or Tea Party principles really have anything to do with county government? And if so, how?
I think it does too. I think that we gotta uphold the Constitution and what our founding fathers set forth for our nation. And no matter what level of government it is, local, federal, state, or county, we need to uphold those. And I agree with that statement completely.
This is the last question for y'all, both of y'all. I'll start with Mr. Servant. What makes you want to hold the District 5 County Council seat?
I grew up in this district. I was born and raised here. My family business is located here that opened up in the 1950s. I attended St. James Elementary, Middle, and High School in Burgess. I attended preschool at the Learning Tree off Wednesday Road. I played my youth football and baseball games at Huckabee Fields. This place is my home. I care about it deeply. And I want to help the people of this district. And we need help. And we need somebody that's going to listen to y'all's concerns, that deeply care about y'all's concerns. And that's the reason why I'm running. Because I want to make sure that our district is just as good as it was for me growing up, that it is for my grandkids. And that they have the same opportunities that I had.
I too, Randall, am running because I care deeply about this district. As I said earlier, I have deep roots in Horry County. When the incumbent Paul Price decided not to run, we were encouraged by several individuals that we respect to run. We thought about it, we prayed about it, we felt like that's what we were being led to do, and so we've done that. We've run a good race. I feel like we're the candidate. I'm the candidate who's most qualified to represent you, who has the experience necessary to effectively represent you on day one. I do love this community. I love this community because it's where my children are growing up. It's where I would like for my children to be able to stay one day. So we want to work hard to advance the agenda for District 5 on County Council. We want to work hard to advance not just District 5, but all of them for the future of our county. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate your support.
Flip the coin, as you saw at the beginning, to do a closing statement, and I'm going to start that off with Mr. Boyd, who you allowed Tom to go first, so you go first and close. But before I do, I want to say one thing. I don't see Mr. Smith, but I do see Mr. Otwell here, and the two of you. I did this the last time, and I'll do it again before I turn it over finally to them. When I ran for city council the first time, I finished dead last in an 8-man field. And so I would advise you, everybody can't win, but I would hope that you folks, you two guys up here, and Mr. Otwell, and then Mr. Smith, wherever he is, y'all stay involved and please run again. If you aren't the fortunate one who wins, because it's a rewarding experience, and after you do it one time, your chances of getting elected improve. And so I would just encourage you to stay involved. But anyway, with that.
Time.
Reese goes first.
Reese is first.
He won the toss, so he picked.
Thank y'all again.
2.5 minutes? 2.5 minutes. You ready? He said 2.5 minutes, right?
Thank y'all again. It's been a privilege to be with y'all tonight. I do appreciate your consideration and your support. I do want to say one thing. We are not the most well-funded campaign, but we've run a hard race. I am a lifetime resident of Horry County. I have lived beyond the district. I've lived beyond Horry County, but I've spent most of my life in Horry County. I feel like I'm the candidate who's most capable, most effective at representing you on county council. My opponent sent a mailer out this week that says he's the candidate who has lived and worked in the district. I don't usually address those issues, but I want to respond to that. I've lived in the district for 10 years, and I have worked in the district for the vast majority of those last 10 years. I recently moved my office to Myrtle Beach, but I've been available throughout this campaign. We've literally, again, passed out 3,000 of these cards. And my office may be in Myrtle Beach since January, but it's not been so far to drive that I haven't made it to every single debate that's been hosted here at this facility. And if I'm your councilman, I'll continue to be available. I'll continue to work extremely hard to represent you and be your advocate on county council. One of the things that I've learned as a lawyer is you have to be able to relate to people to be an effective advocate, to be an effective lawyer for them. One of the things that I believe my life experience has taught me is to be able to relate to you. And I think when you look at both of the candidates and you ask yourself, what's Reese's life experience? Read our bio, read where I am, read where I've been. Who can most effectively relate to me? And I like Tyler, a very nice young man, I'll say it again. But can Tyler, living where he lives, a year out of college, can he really relate to me? I believe that I'm the councilman who can sit on that dais and relate to each and every one of you, regardless of your circumstances. And I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
I would first like to thank each and every one of y'all for taking the time out of y'all's evening to come listen to me and my opponent talk tonight. This is what's great about the government. This is what's great about everything is us being able to get up here and express our views to you. I want to thank the South Stream Republican Club, Mr. Bond Sr. for all that good clockwork, and Mr. Randall Wallace for good moderating. I know it's a tough situation to be in, and even Mr. Liston Wells for inviting me. For me, I grew up here. I want to help you. I've knocked on the doors, as Mr. Otwell said. I've knocked on a ton of doors. I knock on 200 doors at least a night on the weekends and weekdays. The people I've talked to, the majority of them, they can relate to me. They see my age as an advantage because I have the time and energy to dedicate to it. And that's what I'm going to bring if I'm so fortunate enough to be elected to county council. I will listen to your concerns, and I will listen to each and every one of y'all. I'll attend the meetings and talk to Mr. Bond Sr. and Mr. Liston Wells about the issues, and Mr. Al Jordan. And I just appreciate y'all's support and humbly ask for your vote on June 24th. Thank y'all so much.
And the guy with the timing bell is going to speak to you before we go, so I'm going to let John Vaughn say.
You know, when I ran campaigns about 50 years ago, I always told my candidates, when you come up here, acknowledge your father and mother, Mr. and Mrs. Servant. Please stand up. Yay. Mr. and Mrs. Servant. Thank you very much for coming out. And of course, Mrs. Boyd and her children. Where's she? Mrs. Boyd? Where's Boyd? Where's she? Back here. You think like to do that. And also, let me say hello to Reese's mother. She's out here as well.